Sharif, give us the lay of the land right now in Egypt. What has taken place?
Well, Amy, as you mentioned, a really shocking ruling. In the last 5 weeks, this same judge has sentenced more than 1,100 people to death, some of the biggest death sentence rulings in world history. And really cases which lack even the minimum requirements of due process. This latest case is over 680 people in Upper Egypt, in the southern part of the country, sentenced for the killing of a single police officer in the attack on a police station on August 14th, following the violent dispersal of two pro-Morsi citizens that left hundreds dead. Only about 60 of those who were in this case were actually arrested. The rest were in absentia. Under Egyptian law, if those people turn themselves in, they should be granted a retrial. So the verdicts are not final. Appeals, they are expected to be overturned. But I mean, what this does say about the judiciary, or at least this judge, is that more than any other time in recent history, the Egyptian judiciary seems to be a willing partner in state repression, that it's not acting whatsoever as a check on the executive. If we look in history, under Gamal Abdel Nasser, he set up special courts to try dissidents. Even under Mubarak, when they were trying members of the Muslim Brotherhood and other opposition voices, they would have to resort to military courts or exceptional state security courts in order to get lengthy sentences, because the civil judiciary was either letting people go or giving them short or not long terms. And we saw in 2005, 2006 an uprising by judges who were protesting electoral fraud, and that helped lay the groundwork for the 2011 uprising. So there has been a semblance of independence in the past, but what we've seen in this latest period, not just these two mass death sentence rulings, but many rulings against protesters, against dissidents, sentencing people to jail, means that this judiciary has become a willing partner in the state repression. This particular judge has a reputation for very harsh sentences. He recently sentenced a dozen people to 88 years in prison for rioting, and he also acquitted about a dozen police officers for the killing of 17 protesters during the 2011 uprising. And also, if we look at just the sheer number of people in this latest case, 680 people in this small town, it's almost as if every person knows someone or has an extended family member who has been sentenced to death now. And local papers have reported a mother saying that her son was sentenced to death even though he died 3 years ago. A local human rights group, the Egyptian Initiative for Personal Rights, documented how 2 people sentenced to death for this August 14th riots were actually in Libya at the time. So this really doesn't satisfy even the basic requirements of due process. And of course, this is the same judge who last month sentenced 529 people to death. On that same day, the other day, he commuted all but 37 of those death sentences. That's still a very high number for Egyptian law. If we want to make a comparison, when following the assassination of the Egyptian president Anwar al-Sadat in 1981, 5 people were sentenced to death.
Let's bring in Mohammed Sudan into the conversation, Foreign Relations Secretary of the Freedom and Justice Party, the political wing of the Muslim Brotherhood. Could you explain the response of the Muslim Brotherhood to this verdict?
I'm really want to assure all what Mr. Sharif just said, but also I want to add something from my perspective about what's going on in many courts, that it's only not one judge. There are 3 judges, and any verdict they should agree upon for this verdict or court decision. I think these guys, the 3 judges, are under peak pressure from the Egyptian intelligence to issue this kind of verdicts. It's unbelievable. Verdicts. It's against the humanity. It is something no one can believe in. The judges, they are supreme judges. They are not young judges. They never do something like this. Number one, they release all the officers which they kill rebels in the revolution of 25th of January 2011, and now they are coming to issue a verdict. More than 700 people sentenced to death, and almost 500 people to be sentenced for life for 25 years just to kill one officer. It's something unbelievable without any investigation, never giving space or time to the defenders to defend themselves or the lawyers to talk. Here it's a political verdict, 100%, coming from an order from the military coup authority. It's a way away from justice. By these verdicts, it's already killed the justice in Egypt after killing the democracy by Sisi and his group of thugs, which they occupied Egypt after they've been free from the military regime for more than 60 years. Now Egypt is under police state. It's under a military state for 100%. This is just the beginning. And if the international community keeps silent towards all these crimes, this is a crime. This is not a court. This is those judges, even who issued this unbelievable court the verdicts, and there are others because they send also, or they issued another verdicts like 83 years sentences for some other protesters just to protest, or 11 years for young girls, 14 years old, just to protest at 7 o'clock in the morning. Here is the way which is the military coup authority in Egypt after the 3rd of July. They could control the judiciary to do whatever they want to do to stop or to scare the protesters in the street, to stop demonstration, to stop protesting against the coup. But we will say that by that way, by this kind of verdicts, you will not stop us to protest against you. We will not squeeze us to go to violence or to commit violence. You will not ever provoke us to go to violence because we have strategy. We have a strategy since 86 years ago to be struggling against the injustice, against the unfair trials, this crazy verdicts with a peaceful struggling. We
Mohammed Sudan, I wanted to ask about Mohammed Badie, the spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, also being sentenced to death, and what's happening with President Morsi right now.
Not yet. It is a bending or still the process of the trial is still going on. He has been involved or engaged for many times. It's a comic.
You're saying President Morsi is on trial now.
Yeah, it's many trials, not only one.
Right.
It's many trials.
Mohammed Badie being sentenced to death.
Yes. This is what issued yesterday.
And what is your response to that? What is Mohammed Badie's significance to the Muslim Brotherhood?
He is the general guidance of the Muslim Brotherhood in all over the world. He said that yesterday, if you kill us, we will not stop. Our people will not stop to protest. And this is what we always mention, that if we're being killed, struggling to get justice, to get democracy, to get dignity to our people, then it's a very cheap price. We never stop. We never stop.
Well, another opposition group targeted by the Egyptian government is the April 6 movement, a pro-democracy group that played a key role in the popular uprising that ousted Hosni Mubarak in 2011. April 6 member Mohammed Yusuf said the group would defy an Egyptian court's ban on its activities.
This is a decision only on paper that will not stop the activities of the 6th of April. To the contrary, tomorrow we will be in the streets to tell them that this banned group is only banned in your imagination and in your dreams. This ruling will not stop the members of the movement demonstrating, will not stop them from saying what they believe, will not stop us standing up to any despot, however powerful he might be, and however many institutions he can control to push his ideas through.
That was April 6 youth movement member Mohammed Yusuf. Sharif, could you talk about what's happening with the April 6 youth movement? Its leaders are in prison. And also explain, you talked about how the judiciary in Egypt was previously more independent. What do you think accounts for the fact that they're complicitous with the military government in all of these trials?
Well, the April 6 youth movement is a very important group here in Egypt. It was founded on April 6, 2008. That's where it takes its name from, to support what became a thwarted strike in the delta town of Mahalla al-Kubra, and has since become an important protest group, an organizing group. It played a key role in the 2011 uprising. Following Mubarak's ouster, when the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces took over, they continued with their street pressure against the military council. They were feted by everyone in Egypt initially after the uprising, but then very quickly demonized. The military council continued to portray them as foreign agents and saboteurs, and this court ruling accuses them of espionage and defamation of the state. The Muslim Brotherhood also vilified and demonized the April 6th youth movement, especially when they began to protest what they saw as violations by the Morsi government. We have to remember that the April 6th youth movement actually supported Mohamed Morsi in the runoff against Ahmed Shafi in the 2012 presidential election. They supported him as a protest vote against Ahmed Shafi, who they saw as representing the old regime. They began to break away from the Morsi government in the fall of 2012, following the killing of one of their members by police forces, known as Jika, in November of 2012, and Morsi's fateful constitutional declaration that gave him far-reaching powers. And they eventually began to protest against the Muslim Brotherhood and eventually joined the big anti-Morsi protests on June 30th. However, after Morsi was ousted by the military on July 3rd, they quickly began to criticize the military regime that came in its place. And so they've really have taken principled positions over the past 3 years, standing up against authoritarian governments and different authoritarian regimes. And they've been vilified by much of the state media, much of the private media. And their founders, Ahmed Meher and Mohammed Adil, are now serving 3-year prison sentences for violating a very draconian protest law that was passed by the cabinet last fall. And they're now calling for a protest today to demonstrate against this latest court ruling. This is the same court that ruled against the Muslim Brotherhood back in September, banning the group, which resulted in 1,000 of the group's schools and charities and clinics being shuttered, and they're having their assets frozen. The April 6th youth movement has far less in terms of that. We'll have to see going forward whether this will actually have an effect on the group itself, whether more people will be arrested or not, but certainly a very troubling ruling, and one I think that many in the April 6th youth movement will not take lying down.
Mohammed Sudan, your response as a spokesperson for the Muslim Brotherhood to the banning of the April 6th movement, which has often been very critical of the Muslim Brotherhood.
I want to say that the military coup authority, they will take one by one all their partners in their conspiracy. When they did their conspiracy in the 3rd of July, the April 6th movement, where they were partner for them. But I believe that they do not understand what's going on in the ground in that time. They don't know that there are a conspiracy. What they are doing, that they've been failed in the fabricated crisis, which the Egyptian intelligence, the Egyptian army intelligence as well, with the conspiracy against legitimacy, against the democracy, to have the power back to the military regime, because they are not satisfied that the power hand over to the civilian in that election of the 2012, and got the power in the hand of President Morsi, the first elected president in Egypt. They are not satisfied about this, and then they are trying to make this conspiracy for 1 year, and then, unfortunately, there are some of the movement, they do not understand the reality in Egypt, and then they share Sisi and his group and Salvation Front to be anti-Morsi and to uprise against Morsi and the regime, and they don't understand that all the crises in that time that was being fabricated, like the lack of electricity or lack of water or lack of fuel. That was fabricated crisis. The intelligence, Egyptian intelligence, did it against Morsi, and they have a lot of partners. Unfortunately, April 6th, they were apart from this conspiracy, but I understand they didn't know that. But now they woke up and they understood that the military regime, or the military coup regime, they are going to eat all their partners. If they've been opposed them, then they're going to take them and send them to jail, or maybe they're going to kill them, because this is the system. They don't want any opposition. If you are in my side, then you are my friend. If you are against me, I'm going to either kill you or send you to jail. That is the way.
One of the voices of Egypt's 2011 revolution and its aftermath has just died in an accident. On Tuesday, Bassem Sabri reportedly took a fatal fall off a balcony in Cairo, a prominent journalist and strategist for the Liberal Party Dastur. I wanted Sharif to ask you about his significance, and also you have gotten a chance to interview one of the Al Jazeera reporters who is jailed. On Monday, Al Jazeera served Egypt with a $150 million compensation claim for what it said was damage to its media business inflicted by Cairo's military-backed rulers. 3 Al Jazeera journalists being tried in Egypt on charges of aiding members of the, quote, terrorist organization. Can you talk about both?
Well, first on Bassem Sabri, really a tragic loss here in Egypt. Really a wonderful humanist person, someone who had very clear, level-headed analysis, very astute analysis of what was happening in Egypt. In the most polarizing and difficult times, he remained optimistic, yet level-headed, and was really just a wonderful human being. And this is really a tragic loss and very difficult to bear in these very tough times in Egypt right now, that we have bad news like this and lose one of Egypt's best to such a tragedy. With regards to the Al Jazeera journalists, I've been covering the trial very closely, have had an opportunity to interview one of them, Mohammed Fahmy, when he got a scan on his shoulder. The next session of the trial, the 7th session, is scheduled for May 3rd.